Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for being here with me. And a special shout out to one of my followers, Michelle Richards. And Michelle specifically requested this video on the prison intake process, and I'm more than happy to give you all this vlog video. Now, in the state of California, the intake process is twofold. There is one for the county jail system, and then there's a different intake process for the state prison system. Although with both of them, of course, if you're there, you're incarcerated, you're a prisoner. Um, but the intake process, no doubt for either of them, for both of them, is extremely long and involved. However, it's always a lot more involved and grueling for the county jail system, especially in Los Angeles, California. Um, There are a few things you can do to maybe shorten it, but it wouldn't be shortened by that much. The prisoner population in California, and more specifically in Los Angeles County, which is the only county I've been involved in and therefore know of, is because of the overcrowding, it's just almost impossible. And you're lucky if you're 100% healthy and you don't have any medical issues, be it physical or emotional and psychological. If you're not on any type of medication, that shortens the process, but only by a little. And on the flip side, if you are one of those inmates that have any type of physical or mental condition, and even if you take so much as aspirin on a regular basis, you will be considered a medical inmate, at least at the time of intake. And that process always takes longer because the medical staff, who are overworked, have to see you. So you'll be sitting down there on the first floor for a much longer time before you're finally assigned a location. I'll just call it a housing location. That's all I can ever call it, because uh, it's not a house, but it's what you're assigned to. And in Los Angeles, the county jail is just horrible. The conditions have been and are absolutely, they're horrendous. And you have to be very careful. They have had throughout the years, and it's even, it's been on the news, they've had many different outbreaks of staph, which is one of the worst things you can be afflicted with, and other conditions. And in this time of COVID, I can just imagine, um, or maybe even not, how much longer and worse it is. They said that at the outset of COVID, when the pandemic first started, at least in the public eye, they had said that they were releasing a lot of inmates due to the virus, and that even more inmates were actually intentionally trying to contract the virus so they too could be released. But here's the thing, it's an endless cycle, because even when inmates are released, a lot more are taken in. And that's just how it is. Now, I can tell you about the women's side in the county jail. If you're arrested and you're not given a bail, or for whatever reason you have not posted bail, initially you'll be in the city jail, and they're supposed to arraign you within 72 hours. And I don't think that includes weekends, but even if it does, it's still such a long time to be in the city jail, because you have no amenities. You don't even have the necessities in there that by law they're supposed to give you. They are supposed to grant you showers and certain hygienic supplies such as soap, shampoo, a toothbrush, toothpaste, and certain other basic necessities, which they don't always do. In fact, when they do, it's a rarity. You are issued one blanket, and you're lucky if you find a mattress in the holding cell in the city jail. And so I'm going to give you the intake process for the city jail, in fact. So basically, the booking process takes a long time, but never as long as it takes in the county jail in Los Angeles. What happens is that they arrest you. They first take you to the closest police station, and then the city jail that you're going to be uh, kept in is either that police station, or if that police station does not hold inmates overnight, what will happen is you will go through a long booking process in the police station where you go through the basics like fingerprinting, photographing, questioning, which I would suggest never answer. Uh, Whether you answer or not, they're not going to cut you any slack. So, you know what? Lawyer up. Request an attorney, and legally they have to stop questioning you right then and there. So after that process where they inventory all of your personal items that you had on you at the time of arrest, and they finish the fingerprinting, the photographing, and whatever else that they deem is necessary by law, they will either keep you there if you don't post bail, or they will transport you to a central city jail. Uh, and, so it differs. There's a city jail in Van Nuys. I don't know of any other city jails, but there are so many, of course. So you will be kept in the city jail, and you will be arraigned in the corresponding court within 72 hours. Sometimes you're arraigned actually before that. Rarely your arraignment will be overlooked, and in that case they have to legally release you. That does not prevent the prosecutors from picking up your case later down the road. They have a certain amount of time to do that, however. So, after the city jail and after your arraignment in court, if you had not been given a bail for whatever reason, then in court there's a chance for you to be given a bail, or for your bail to be lowered if you were given a bail and you didn't post it, or for you to be released on an OR, which is your own recognizance, which is a legally binding promise that you're going to come back for your next court date. However, if you're not released on a lower bail or OR, then you're going to be held in the basement called lockup of that court until all of the other defendants have been arraigned, or or have gone through their court dates, because you're going to be down there in the dungeon, which is exactly what it is in most courts. It's very dark and dungeonous, and even subpar. You'll be down there with defendants who have just been arrested like yourself, or inmates actually who have been in the county jail for either a short time or a long time, or even years, still going through their cases, fighting their court cases, and they've been transported there for the day's court date. And when the court day is done, which is usually by 4 or 4:30, then you're going to be down there a while longer until all the inmates have been processed, from the court dates. It's still processed down there. So the sheriff's department, the deputies, will process them, get all of their paperwork ready, and then the county jail bus will arrive inside layers, through layers, uh, a couple locked gates to pick up the inmates. And they don't just pick up the inmates. So in, Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County, the process is that if you have not been deemed a keep away, a K-10, or any other K categorized inmate at that point, what's going to happen is you're going to be shackled to another inmate. You may be shackled to one inmate, and then you'll both be shackled to several other inmates on a literal chain gang. Or you may just be, if you're lucky, because you don't want to be shackled to any of those other inmates, especially if they're defendants that have just been arrested and come in, because there are a lot of drunks. And even if they've been, in process for 72 hours, there's still a lot of alcohol on them. They're still drunk. They haven't slept it off yet. It's really bad. And you don't want to be handcuffed to any of them. I didn't want to be. If you're lucky, you will be cuffed by yourself if they've run out of room on the chain. Sometimes it happens. Or worse, you'll be waist chained, but you're by yourself. So it depends on the deputy, and it also depends on you sometimes, and how you're acting, how they choose to have you chained and shackled for that ride to the county jail. But here's the thing, it's not finished yet. And I'm not just talking about intake. You're going to get on that bus, and it's always about money. The more transports that happen, the more money that goes down. So what happens is that even though it's not always necessary, you are going to be on that bus with all of these other inmates, and the buses are different now. There are no real windows to look out of. In fact, the buses, the way they're built now, is that the windows are way, way higher. They're actually built at the ceiling of the bus, not at the roof, but at the ceiling. And they're either painted over, or they're so meshed and barred over. At any rate, you cannot look out of those windows. You can't see anything out of them. So you're going to be on that bus, basically in a submarine, in a steel submarine. And there's a door that locks all the inmates away from the deputies, the drivers. And you're going to be going on that ride, but not yet to the county jail. Whether you're a male or female, you're going to get a ride all the way down to the men's central jail. So what happens there is that you're going to be taken off the bus, and then you're going to be taken into a very antiquated, it's still there, they still haven't fixed it, they still haven't repaired it. The women's holding area is one just large room which has two sides to it. There's one side that's caged off with benches, metal benches, and there's another side that's caged off with metal benches. And then to the back, there are some literal dungeon single cells that are also caged off, or worse yet, they have a solid door. So if you're at that point a general population inmate and not a keep away inmate, you're going to be in that huge room where the doors are locked. The deputies take the chains off of you. There's a cop shop. It's the officer station. And the deputy in there has all the controls of the cages being opened and closed, even though it's like that place is like, it seems like 1,000 years old. I'm exaggerating, but that's actually the condition that it's in. It still has grime from like 40, 50 years ago. At the vents in the ceiling, no, they haven't cleaned it. No, it's not up to code. They say it is, but they're lying. You just have to look at it to see the grime is actually black and thick, so there's no ventilation really. So you're going to be taken off that chain, and they'll tell you which side you're going to be going on, the left or the right. and you go on that side if there's room. If there it's not crowded with inmates yet, you're going to be sitting there with those inmates, and then you're going to be sitting there for hours and hours and hours while other buses from other city jails and also from the courts with that day's court scheduled inmates, buses and buses upon buses bring more female inmates over there where you are, and both sides are slowly becoming more and more full, and to where it's standing room only, so inmates have to stand. And if you do have to use the restroom, pee, you're going to be doing it in front, literally in front of all of the inmates. There's no partition. There is a toilet there, and if it's good if you have become acquainted with another prisoner and you can ask her to come and stand in front of you, but that's the most that's going to happen. Yeah, it's like that. You're going to be peeing in front of all of the inmates. They still have no partitions there. And sometimes the plumbing isn't even working. So when you push the button to flush it and you don't even want to touch that button, the water's just going to spray out. Yeah, that's how it goes in there still as of this vlog time. So it's going to become more and more full, and until it's to capacity. And then there are going to be buses coming in to take you with the other inmates on another chain gang, or if you're cuffed by yourself, on another bus. It's going to be the same drill. You're all going to be sitting on hard benches. There are no cushions and no windows to look out of, behind a cage door where it locks you off from the drivers, of course. Now, if you're a keep away inmate and you're chained and shackled by yourself, what's going to happen is you're not only going to be within that cage, but you're going to be within an additional individual cage, which is so tiny that it's almost, not quite, but almost tight. Like you have no room to move. Your knees will touch the metal wall in front of you that separates you from the next individual cage. And they're cages, they're not holding cells, they're cages on those buses. And then you will be transported to the county jail. However, even at that point, you're still not going to be getting off the bus. You're going to be staying on that bus for maybe 15 minutes to half an hour while the deputies both get off of that bus, lock up their guns, take your paperwork to the jail deputies, and they go through your paperwork. They'll see if there are any special notes or anything else that needs to be considered. And then and only then, the general population inmates will be loaded off first. And that's part of the intake process that is just then starting there. And it's going to go on for hours. It may go on to the next day, depending on how loaded they are in the jail. And by that I mean with inmates. You will be sitting there. If you're a keep away inmate, you'll most likely be sat on a metal bench, and you will stay in the cuffs that they had you on the bus. And then additionally, they're going to hook you to the bench. They're big on confinement there, like above and beyond what it should be or what's even allowable. If you're a general population inmate, they'll unhook you all off of the chain gang, and you'll be directed to a holding cell where you're going to sit there, and it starts all over again. Now you're going to be sitting there if there's room to sit, and those holding cells are a lot smaller. Here we go. Those holding cells are a lot smaller at that point. And you are going to be sitting or standing there with no soap to wash your hands, no cleanliness, hygienic products, nothing. You're going to be there in that holding cell for maybe 2 or 3 hours or more, because it's going to be the same thing. They're going to be getting more inmates from other courts, and it's going to become packed in there. And sometimes there are arguments and fights, of course, because it gets really tight and tense in there. And you're lucky if you can get tissue paper and sanitary pads. At that point, they are not distributing tampons. They used to distribute tampons. They don't do it anymore. So that's something that you would have to buy off of the commissary if you want to use tampons. But if you need tissue and sanitary pads, you're lucky if you get it. They have the inmate workers there, which are called trustees. They are more of the favored inmates, and they do have some power. They could give you some stuff if they want to without asking the deputies, but I mean, will they? Won't they? It's really up to them. There are times when I've been lucky, and the inmates have been like really good to me. It just depends. And I was a keep away inmate, and I have touched on that in my other vlogs, and I'll just mention I had a lawsuit against the county jail a while ago, and ever since then, in retaliation, they've always made me a keep away inmate, a K10, which you actually want to be in there in Los Angeles. That's what you want. You don't want to be with the other inmates because the conditions are so filthy and so tight. You don't have room for anything. I mean, it's really bad. So you'll be in there for several hours, and then when it's to capacity, they will just then come with what they call bed cards. It's a printed out card with your name, your vitals, and everything else on it, like your birth date, your charges, things like that. And at that point, they're going to start distributing the jail uniform. You will now all be taken, herded out by a very mean and demanding deputy, because they're sadistic in the county jail in LA. And you will be herded into a strip out area. Now that can be another holding cell, it can be a different area, or it can be outside in the lockup bus terminals. Because when there are no buses in there, it has a cage that comes down, which is like a garage door, but it's a mesh metal steel cage. So it's basically outside, and you'll be stripped out there. They used to do strip searches. Now they don't really do them anymore because they have a full body scanner. But you're still going to be stripped partially, which is you're going to have to all stand in a semicircle with your backs to the deputies. You're facing the wall. You don't know what they're doing. They're going to come and walk around, several of them, and run down the drill to you that when we tell you you're going to remove your shoes, your socks, and anything in your hair. And here's the thing. If you're like me, but I have to do it anyways, I was forced to, it's like, you don't want to remove your shoes and socks and stand on those floors barefoot. They barely clean them. They might sweep them, the trustees, once in a while when they feel like it, and that's about it. And it's not regulated. It's supposed to be, but it's not. So they're going to have you hold up 1 foot at a time. You still cannot look behind you. You have to keep facing the wall. You're going to be holding up your hands, showing your palms. You're going to be pulling up your hair, showing the nape of your neck. You're going to be shaking out your hair gently. If you are wearing a sanitary pad or a tampon, you will be demanded to remove them and throw them into the plastic clear bags that the trustees will be walking around with shortly. And you're going to have to do it without looking. Yeah, you have to reach behind you and throw it in there and hope you don't miss, or you're going to get screamed at by the deputies. Don't toss it in there. Reach behind and drop it in there gently. Then they'll have you put, most of the time they will let you put your shoes and socks back on. A lot of other times they will not let you. You will hold them in your hands and you will be directed to form a line, because now you can turn around. and you'll be going through the full body scanner. Whether you're pregnant, whether you have any chronic conditions, doesn't matter. They claim it's safe. So you'll go through that scanner, and it's not over yet. Now you'll be filing in a line and being herded out of that area back into the holding cell for some more hours, depending. And at that point, they will start serving uh, some food. And it's usually the jailhouse burritos and a carton of sugary orange juice, um, because it's the easiest for them to prepare. They are required by law to give you two hot meals, so-called meals, um, or it used to be two hot meals. Now they give you two cold and one hot. Their version of a hot meal, since you have not been assigned to a housing unit yet, is a warmed up burrito and a cold carton of juice. That's it. Nothing else. No vegetables, no lettuce, no fruit, nothing. And then you'll be sitting there some more. When the deputies are ready, they will come and call your names one by one. You're not going to move, you're just going to respond. And then they're going to explain to you that the next step in the intake process is for TB tests. They come in the form of either a quick x-ray or the injection under the skin. So it just depends, you know. Most of the time it's the x-ray. You will be taking that x-ray whether you're pregnant or not. They just give you the cover for it if you tell them you're pregnant, which I don't consider adequate, but it is what it is. If you don't take it, you will go into disciplinary isolation. I believe it's not just isolation, but you'll go into disciplinary. So you are forced to take that test. After that, you'll go back into a holding cell with all of the other inmates packed in there so very tightly. And you're going to be waiting some more. Then they will come back and call your names again. You will only respond, you will not move, and they will explain to you the next step in this dragging process, which is the medical screening. Um, the medical screening actually will come after the general screening, which is the classification process, which is one by one, every inmate will go to an area where there are hard plastic stools. You will sit on the stool. You cannot remain standing. And there's the partitions, and there's a deputy or a CA, custodial assistant, behind that partition, going down a list of questions while they're putting it into the system and they're checking you in the system. At that point, they'll decide where you're going to be housed, unless you have a medical condition down the line that changes the area of your housing. You will go back to the holding cell and you'll wait some more. Then you will be called to the medical process. At that point, usually you're told that you have a choice, and they'll even tell you, ladies, the intake process is going to still be a long time. So you have options. If you don't have an absolute chronic or acute medical condition, you can pass on it. If you want to go ahead and declare that you're healthy and fine, you don't have any type of medications that you need to take, not even aspirin, that you don't have sleeplessness or any other emotional or mental issues, and then you will be housed a little quicker. At that point, the inmates decide. But here's the thing, majority of the LA County prisoner population do have chronic illnesses. A lot more than not have seizures due to drug use and other conditions, and it's just a big thing there. So, and then some inmates just want meds, for whatever reason, you can guess. So if you do have a condition, then what happens is that you're going to be there longer until the medical staff, and it's not always RNs, there are LVNs and other nursing staff, will come and see you there, and they will ask you another list of seemingly endless questions. And then by then, basically, you'll be fully classified and your housing, your temporary housing has been determined. You will go to an intake dorm, and it's not really a dorm because at Linwood right now, unless they change the LA County location for the female inmates, Linwood, which is a very old, decrepit jail. They're all cells, even if you are a general population inmate. The only difference is that if you're a GP inmate, you will be housed with another inmate, and you don't want to be, because incoming inmates are on big time drugs, and some of them slip through the cracks where they have not been sent to a mental uh, dorm, for mentally classified inmates. For whatever reason, they've slipped through the cracks, and some of them are downright crazy. Like, they're really like climbing the walls crazy, screaming, shouting, and that's for a mental condition. But then there are other inmates who are just acting that way because they're on drugs still. They haven't kicked it yet, and they're very, very ill. You can be housed with one of those. So, but if you're a GP inmate, you usually get out of there because then you have to be classified in there too. But you'll probably be getting out of there in 2 or 3 days. If you're a keep away inmate, you're going to be in there celled alone, which you want anyways. However, they flout, they disregard all of the rules, regulations, and laws and health codes. You will be there for weeks unless you put up a fit. I mean, insisting gets you nowhere. Um, Behaving decently gets you nowhere. If you put up a fit for them to classify you and get you through the process in that area to send you to a permanent housing location, because when you're in the intake dorm or the intake cells, per Title 15, you are supposed to get a shower every other day. You are supposed to get outdoor recreation at least 3 days a week. Those are laws, they're not suggestions. And outdoor recreation in the LA County Jail, it's different from the other counties. There is no outdoor unless you're an honor dorm inmate. There's no outdoor. There's just like some big room with no equipment for exercising or nothing. It's just, for a window, it's a huge mesh at the back wall, a steel mesh and bars, and you might be able to hear some street sounds below, like passing cars or something, or some male inmates shouting over, because they have male honor dorm inmates working outside of the women's county jail. That's it. And who wants to talk to another male inmate? Not me. So yeah, you don't get that so-called outdoor rec. You don't get a shower. You do not get a hygiene kit, which is already inadequate. A hygiene kit in the LA County Jail, the intake kit is a small baggie, a snack size baggie, not even a standard size, of about 3 small packets, not pouches, packets of shampoo, a packet of liquid deodorant, a small thumb-sized toothbrush. They call it a safety toothbrush, but it's not safe because when you try to brush your teeth, you cut your gums with your nails if you have nails. And a tiny tube of toothpaste. It's all generic, so it doesn't, none of the products work very well, but it's what you have, in a small motel size of soap. If you're a keep away inmate and you're in that intake dorm, in that cell, you get nothing. They disregard you unless you put up a fit, which I've always had to do when I was in there, unfortunately. You're supposed to get 2 blankets. They give you one. You're supposed to get sheets. They don't give you any sheets, and they claim it's for your safety because you're in the intake dorm. GP inmates, nobody gets sheets in there. And it's freezing cold, even if it's in like the prime of summer and it's sizzling hot outside. It is freezing cold in there because even though the vents are filthy, they have air that's comes out of the vents really forcefully because so many other inmates plug up and cover their vents, that if the vent in the cell that you have is not covered up, it comes out even more forcefully. And this is no exaggeration, the air blasts. It is freezing cold in there. You know, those are not conditions that you want to be in, especially if they want to be sadistic, which they are, and only give you one blanket. Again, you have to pitch a fit to get another blanket, and those blankets are inadequate. It is what it is. It's about survival. You know, that's what